Okay, hello again my YouTube lovelies, and welcome to this episode. This is episode 7, Quality Time. This is an episode which concentrates on the sofa, primarily the sofa. The sofa is a place where I spend a huge amount of time. Let's face it, I would say, I don't know, if I was in my van all day long, I'd probably spend a good half of it, if not more, on the sofa. So because of that, it had to be somewhere that was really, really comfortable, but at the same time fairly multifunctional. And I think I've done that with this. I think there's probably aspects of my sofa that no one else has, or very few people have anyway. But then again, there are aspects of my sofa that pretty much everyone has. I wanted to come up with an idea or a design which was multifunctional in that, yes, it's a sofa. I wanted it also to become a bed, or an additional bed. I obviously needed to and wanted to utilise the space underneath because it was sort of fairly key storage area, so I wanted access to it. And then a friend of mine, Matt, came up with the idea of creating multiple pull-out sections. So I guess that's the part that makes it slightly unique to other sofas, or this particular design of sofa. Now this design of sofa, the slatted design that pulls out to extending to a bed, etc., but is a hinged top at the same time, is a classic design, and yet it took me bloody ages to find it. I could see it in so many van builds, but I was never able to see it in its, I don't know, in a really clear sort of state where I could go, okay, I get it now, that bit goes there and that's what pulls out, etc. I was really struggling to try and find the actual design for this, and I think in the end, I can't remember whose channel it was. It wasn't even a channel, it was actually it was an Instagram post that I saw, and it was a van build, and someone had done a very short video of the sofa opening and closing, etc. And I was able to sort of I just watched this video over and over and over again, and then suddenly it was like, it clicked. It suddenly went, aha, I get it now. I understand what it is that needs to happen in order for it to work as a lid, etc. And once I'd got that, then I did some sketches and then, you know, eventually made it. But yeah, it took a while, and I cannot for the life of me remember the name of the channel and the post, which is a real shame because it was a nice little video. But once I'd got that, then I was in a good place. Then I was able to sort of crack on and make what I wanted to do. As I said, it needed to be a very multifunctional space. It is in the front half section of the van, so the sort of, I guess what I call the living room area, or the living area. It sits opposite my kitchen stroke dresser unit, so I needed it to be a multifunctional space in terms of that. Yes, it's a sofa, but it's a place that I can sit with the extended table out from the dresser, and I can eat. I can use one end of it and pull out a little stool section, and I can then do some editing, etc. So this 2-meter space that I'm in becomes a sort of very multi-purpose use space. As I said, it's 2 meters long, so you know, I'm, what am I, 189 or 6'2", whatever it is, so you know, I can lie down fully stretched on this, which is really good. And yeah, it just works brilliantly. I absolutely love this space. I spend a hell of a lot of time here. I quite often will be at this end here, so I sit with my back against the bulkhead looking towards the back end of the van, and I can watch Netflix or whatever it is that I'm watching on the laptop. And then if I'm sort of at a campsite and I don't have the covers on the window, I'll sit quite often with my back to the bookcase, and I can again either watch something on the telly, or quite often I do quite a lot of reading sat at that end there. So a really nice place. It started out, I used 3x1 timber for this. In hindsight, possibly I could have used 2x1, but I think had I used 2x1, I would have needed more pieces of timber in order to make all the slots and the slats, and enough to give me the support that I needed. So I went with 3x1, just because it was, you know, that gives you what, a 75mm surface, so it's covering, so you don't more area, so you don't need as many slats, and it's quite strong. I mean, it takes my weight, and I'm a hefty guy, so you know, the fact that it could take my weight was important as well. So the first thing I do is I cut the lengths that I need, the 3x1 timber. Now, I'd already decided, I knew that it was a 2 meter length, so I had a 2 meter area in which to cover, and rather than building it as one long coffin piece, I decided to build it as two separate box sections. It just meant that it was easier to bring into the van, because yes, I think I'd already built the kitchen, so it would have been a bit of a struggle to get this in through the door, so I built it as two sections. So the first thing to do is basically cut my lengths of 3x1 battens. So I cut those using a crosscut saw, and then I kind of laid them out into the sort of pattern, so to make sure that I had the correct pieces, working out the spacing, and again, all the time, having only had that short video on Instagram to go by and doing some sketches, I was still kind of, you know, I was kind of guessworking a little bit with this build. But once I've laid out the pieces and everything, I then screw those together. I make sure that there is a uniform space for that slider piece, so that it was enough room for the 3x1 slots to sort of slide in and out of each other, and they weren't going to catch. And once I'd screwed all of those in and had got those all equally spaced out, I then used a jigsaw to just cut off the three sort of protruding ends. These are the bit that overlap one sort of length, and that was basically to make it easier for that piece underneath to slide out, because when it was left just as a sort of straight 90-degree corner or face, it used to catch a little bit, so cutting that 45 and then sanding it down enabled that bottom piece to slide out a lot easier. Once I've built the two slider pieces and I'm happy with the way they work and that they're doing everything they need to do, I then concentrate on building the box sections. So the box is just a 2x2 framework. It's slightly higher at one end because obviously I wanted the depth of the slider and at the top of the sofa to fit within that height. So the back end of the sofa is slightly higher than the other three sides. So I create a box out of 2x2, build myself 2 of these boxes. So I have 2 separate 1 meter by, not quite sure what the width is. I think it's about 500 or 600 mil, 50-60 centimeters or whatever it is in width or depth, and then the box section is about 1 meter, so you've got the 2 meter section to fill the void. So I create the boxes, and then I put the hinges on the back in order to facilitate the lifting of the tops and creating the lids for access to the storage below. Once I'm happy with that, I put a box, one of the completed ones, on the floor and just checked it myself, checked it for that it would take my weight. There was I don't think there was any doubt that it would, but you always do. Well, I do anyway. And if it can take my weight, I think it can pretty much take anyone's weight. So jumped about on it a little bit, and once I'd done that, I then created the second box. So, you know, I've built 2 of these boxes, again attached the lid and the slider unit to it. And then the finishing touch is then basically to put a fascia on the front edge. So this is the edge that you see as you come into the van. So I've done that. Again, that's just using 5.5 mil, so the same stuff that's on the walls here. And I've cut it into 2 strips, so you don't actually see it really, because a lot of times it gets covered with a blanket that goes over the top, but it's done as 2 sections, and the idea is that kind of replicates the panels on the wall, because these are all done as 25 mil sections going up the wall. So I've done the same below, it's just 2 sections, so you've got 2 lengths of panelling. And then once I've done that, I give the whole thing a really good sanding, make sure that all the edges, any corners, anywhere that's likely to catch when you're sliding it in and out, all of that is sanded, and just check that the action works, that it's kind of opening and closing properly. And then I do the support legs. So the idea of the support legs, they're hinged, so they clip up underneath the front lip here. Again, the box underneath is slightly less than the height, or the width of the top, due to the fact that I needed to allow for these sort of legs which drop down basically, and those legs, as they drop down, that's what creates the supports for when it slides out to become the double bed. And what I did originally, in the footage you'll see that I've only done 2 of those, but eventually at a later date I actually cut it and create 4 separate pull-out slider units. So quite often at this end of the sofa here, when I'm editing, I will just pull out 1 section, and then I sort of remove the cushions that I have at the back and pillows, and then I sit on that, and that tends to be my area where I do a lot of editing from, etc., or any work that I'm using on my laptop. There's then obviously the 2 in the middle, which very rarely come out, but they're obviously to pull out if I'm wanting to make the bed. And then obviously I have the one at this end here which pulls out. So effectively what I can do, by pulling out the one at the front at the bulkhead end and the one by the bookshelf end, if I just pull those 2 units out separately and then bring the table into play, I could effectively sit 4 people around the table. I've not tried it, but I think it would be possible. It'd be a bit of a squeeze, but nonetheless there is the ability now with built-in slidey out stool sections that I can have 4 people sat round around the table. I've yet to have anyone out round for dinner, but you know, never say never. So that's it really. I absolutely love the sofa. I spend, as I said, a huge amount of time here. This is the sort of the main living area, and it's got two, in terms of the cushioning, it's basically got 2 pieces of sponge. So there's 4 pieces of sponge in total, so 2 per section. And I have a double quilt which goes over the top of them, and then I have a sort of mattress topper. It's one that I got for an airbed that I used to have, and that basically has elasticated edge to it, so that goes over the whole fix, so it gives it a bit of cushioning. And then I've got my Alpujarran rug which sits over the top just to give it some comfort. There was thinking originally that the cushions below, at some point I would get those covered with some fabric, etc. And the thinking was that potentially that the reason why there's 2 was that one of them would then create the back, so I would have like a back cushion to lean against. But you know, I found these sort of other sort of cushions that were given to me, and you know, pillows, etc. Maybe at some point I might go to town and get it done properly and get it sort of covered in some nice fabric and get some proper cushions. But for the time being, what I've got is perfectly adequate and very, very comfortable. But that would be a long-term project if I was ever to sort of be bothered to finish it. It would be to cover the 2 cushions below, which then negates me having to then put the quilt over, etc. Because the only reason why that quilt and the covering is over is because these do move about a bit and slide about a bit. So the idea is that they're covered with that, so you don't just see the green sponge below. But that's a job for the future, and whether I do it or not, I don't know. It's the same with, do I get a mattress made for the bed and get the corner cut off? I don't know. I don't need to. So that's it for this episode. The next episode, episode 8 of the build, will be concentrating on the bulkhead section, and this section then is actually the last of the build, so then everything up to that point has been built in terms of furniture and superstructure for the van. If you've liked this episode and liked this content, please give us a thumbs up or a thumbs down. Type in a little comment, etc. It's nice to sort of have some conversation with you guys. If you're new to the channel and you would like to support me in some way, it'd be great if you subscribe and hit the bell, and then you'll get notified. So until the next episode, I look forward to seeing you, and goodbye.